welcome to Night Clerk Radio, episode 86, where today we are doing something pretty exciting. We're covering the 2023 Vaporwave Up Comers compilation. This was released a few weeks ago, July 2nd, 2023, on Halcyon Tapes, which is run by Wizard of Loneliness and curated by Polyglot, who we've talked about before, just coming in hot on this introduction. We talked about Polyglot, and also with artwork by Zero, who we've also talked about before. And I think this came out at a really fortuitous time for us because I think we've talked a lot, both in Patreon episodes and on here, about the difficulty of like keeping up with a scene and how much work that can be. And then just here's, an hour and a half of great recent vaporwave, signal wave, all kinds of electronic music. Like it's called Vaporwave Up Comers, but I think both of us initially were pleasantly surprised by like how many subgenres are represented on here. And like, all the subgenres we've always talked about, there's a lot of like marketing and expectations. It's all vaporwave if you want it to be, of course. But yeah, just all this blending of all these different genres, like bleeding in and out of each other. So it's a lot to talk about. So I think we're just going to dedicate the whole episode to talking about this one album because it is, hour and a half and 27 tracks. So there's plenty to dig into. So do you have any like first opening impressions about the album, Ross?
Yeah, overall, it was really interesting to me to see what is the vaporwave scene? Like, what are the people working in vaporwave currently interested in, right? Like, and to see what's hot right now in vaporwave compared to like 10 years ago is really interesting because you can see newer genres like barber beats really popping up, but also like things like echo jams aren't really vaporwave does sound different than it did a decade ago, and I think that's cool. It's going in a lot of interesting directions. Like that whole nostalgia window is creeping and has gotten to the mid to late 90s a lot more than the 80s now. So like we're seeing a lot of stuff that was really, referencing like 90s shit, like late 90s shit. And so it was very cool to see this. You can really see, how you can't really tell how something's changed when you're immersed in it all the time. But like thinking of like this versus like, Macintosh Plus and stuff like that from, the first wave of vaporwave. It's really cool to see how it has evolved.
Yes. And I think the fact that the genre does evolve, like you were saying, is something that you can kind of tell. But for me, I've always said this, like, it's easy to kind of figure it out academically. And it's another thing to like have somebody who knows way, way more about the genre than you.
Yeah.
Put it all together into a nice package so that then someone like myself who unfortunately like can't dig through the virtual record boxes like they used to can kind of experience it and really understand like what's going on more than my random listening to stuff on Bandcamp or like on our Patreon Discord. People post a lot of really cool albums because they are better than me at staying on top of that stuff. And then I also think just another point about these compilation albums that we've talked about before is that I think this type of curation is like underappreciated and super important, right? I'll just reiterate that like, this is more of an up and comers than rather some like historical list. Not that it matters, but the point is like, it's a little snapshot of what was going on in a scene at a time, which is just important. It's the same argument I've made for, visual signals or any other curation compilation efforts that people have made in vaporwave.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like, you can just tell like the kind of techniques that are more popular now than they were like, the cliche about vaporwave a while ago is, pitch shifted, slowing down and like plunderphonics sampling things. And like, there are a couple of tracks that sound like that, but like there's a much more of it sounds like original compositions and like a greater variety of techniques and sounds or vibes, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And I think even the stuff that is heavily plunderphonics still never feels like there's definitely that era of like vaporwave, unfortunately, as like SEO meme in like 2014 of not doing anything at all. So even like the most heavily plunderphonic stuff on this still has really much more interesting production than even what you're talking about. And then like the absolute best of always have done amazing stuff with plunderphonics.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to just get into tracks? How do you want to tackle this? Because it is a big album.
It is a big album. It's 27 tracks plus they tacked on cassette side A and B at the end. So when I just like download the entire album and put it on my playlist, oh my God, this is 3 hours. Then I was like, oh, wait a minute. They just repeated. So,
which if you can, the cassette side mixes, I think are actually the way to do it.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I don't think it really matters in like, it's just something about just leaving it on and not really thinking about it, which of course like Bandcamp will autoplay through them, but I just really like just leaving those cassettes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I took them off the playlist because I wanted to know what track I was listening to at any given time. So of course, yeah. For the purposes of this review, but yeah, for just casual listening, I could totally see that. Yeah. I think we kind of like in an overview, like there do seem to be sort of like blocks in this album of like, and so maybe we just tackle it block by block and then highlight individual tracks that we like or like really stood out to us. Cause yeah, there's 27 tracks. There's too many to talk about all of them. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I like the opening is actually pretty strong. Like the first couple of tracks are like the first track is Synthesia by Atari Sensei. And I like it. It sounded like an original composition to me, but it might have been Barber beats. It's kind of hard to tell these days because it has like a good like beat. It has more of a structure to it. The weird little synth pads going in it, but yeah. But it's track 2 that really like grabbed my attention because Sold on Dream Suite's great. Yeah, and this one also grabbed my attention because we had recently talked about listening to more, for me personally, this type of more like EDM. Yeah, breakcore, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. In fact, why don't we put a sample in so we can, our listeners can hear what we're talking about? So that's great. And it's obviously using a lot of plunderphonics element, those samples, like the vocals and stuff. I've heard them many times before, but it's very cool. Like it really got me jazzed. Like this is very, also like, I just feel like the energy of this entire album as a whole, if you take it, is like more upbeat and energetic than like Vaporwave was 10 years ago, like, or like 5 years ago. Like Vaporwave used to be a very like slowed down, Telepath 2014, more languid. And this is, I mean, there are like slower and ambient tracks on this album, but like even those feel less than like, I'm going to take this one thing and drag it out to like, make it unrecognizable. It's going to be so slow, guys. It's going to be very slushy. And there's not much in the way of like slush wave in this. There's like a little bit. Yeah. There's, I guess not like super slushy. Yeah. But there's some stuff that's a little like more lushy and wall of soundy. Yeah. Soundscape kind of things. Yeah. Moving through, like you said, track 2 is like breakcore and 3 is pretty frenetic. This Wet Tricks track. Interesting. I think the track title is Your Eyes, the Universe Through Your Eyes, I think. Yeah. Translate another one of those Japanese titles. Yeah, it does have this big shift at like about 2 minutes in. That's pretty interesting. Which is that old Scott style pitch shifted slow down sound. Like, so it's not like at all. So that sound is still here. It's like, it's still Vaporwave, guys. It's just things have changed a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. And then we move on to like sort of like some plunderphonics kind of things. Track 6 really stood out to me, because I fucking love that sample, Copyrog's basic multimedia package.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Just grabbing some 90s computer ad and just like, oh, guys, I got sound blasters. And, God, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I think, every Vaporwave track is improved by taking like a random sample from a 90s commercial of some kind.
I think that's probably true. Yeah, I like this whole block. I'll say like track 4 through 7 or 8, where it is like a lot of smooth synth pieces. Gamma Flows, Corporate Penthouse is like nice, smooth, chill. And then, Soft Replica is cool, who also has been on, I want to say like a best of list that we've done. I know we've talked about Soft Replica's music before, but there's like very smooth, like opening vocals and like more lush, I guess. And then through the track you just talked about, and like then 7 and 8 are also like Lost Traveler. I know we haven't talked about, but I've seen the name, into like more synth compositions, more direct compositions, and then transitioning into like this block of signal wavy stuff.
Yeah. Track 7 was the Lost Traveler one, because it reminded me like of Dungeon Synth, but like for 80s, like an 80s corporate. Yeah, corporate dungeon synth, which is like, I want that to be a thing now, because I have been like on a Dungeon Synth kick lately. I've been listening to a lot of like I've been listening, like someone published this book called Vermis, which is a video game guide to a game that doesn't exist. It's like original art, and like it's very cool. You can only get it in print as far as I can tell. So I bought a print copy, and it's like, and it's got this weird, like pixelated art, but like drawn kind of art that is sort of popular now. But like someone on YouTube has started making Dungeon Synth themed after this imaginary video game. And so I've been listening to a bunch of that lately. So I'm just on a Dungeon Synth kick lately. And I really like 7. I really hope I'm not that, like, I feel like once we get through all the tracks, we should mention which artists we're going to be the most wanting to look up and see what else they've done. So,
okay.
I mean, sort of a theme, but the signal wave. Yeah. What'd you think of the signal wave?
Yeah. So I liked it. So 9 and 10 both feel signal wavy to me, and more like drony, looping samples, not quite like echo jammy, but in that same sense of machinations and All Right Baby, All Right Babe, sorry. Like very smooth, especially track 10 Technology. There's like some little weird little instruments in that loop that are distorted. It's almost like saxophone being ruined or something. Yeah.
No, I quite enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's like, it's just that muffled, weird, uneasy sort of playing with the loops.
Right on that edge between like, this is just comforting music. This is like weird and like
exactly
music that should set your hackles up. Yeah. Like I said, Infinity Frequencies was my gateway to this whole scene in the first place. And this is like giving those kind of vibes, but like track 9 with the Japanese TV stuff or whatever it was Japanese. It's very cool. I'm always wanting to know the source of the samples, but the mystery is nice too.
I think it's fun if you identify them, but it's not always fun to be told what they are unless you're like really curious. I guess that's a personal thing. It's like it's like the anonymity of the artist, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You gotta respect the source material and the artist, I guess. Maybe not. I don't know. But then we move into tracks like the teens, I guess, 11 through 15-ish, I want to say.
Yeah.
Are much more classic Vaporwave. Like, I think just saying that's in my mind because, like, Luxury, we did recently, and it's a lot of that, like, I think you made a few references to being like romantic music, you know,
like literally
the Kenmore track.
Yeah. And also Sober Gaze's Romantic Dinner, track 13. It's like, is this what Burke has been looking for? Is this the romantic music that you've been looking for in a Vaporwave vibe?
Maybe it is funny. We have talked about that because I guess it is almost like date night Vaporwave. A lot of these tracks of like,
I would put this on if I was having a nice romantic dinner with Maddie. I would tell you that.
If you had well, you wouldn't at this point, I guess. But yeah, if I had like a Vaporwave bachelor pad, this is the music like you press a button, like little candles light up, like a little bar unfolds from the bookcase.
Ooh, yeah.
And this is the music. Like any of these tracks from like 11 through 16, it's all like lounge music, like Lounge Lizard stuff.
Yeah.
which I like. I think that's I haven't really done much about it because it's not as meta interesting as like sampling corporate stuff or like examining relationships with advertising or other signifiers like that. But I do like a lot of that vaporwave that's based off what I think it was like loungy late night music, like that late night lo-fi type stuff.
Yeah. This late night lo-fi is a pretty good way.
It's very relaxed. It's very enjoyable to listen to. A lot of these names too are also like cool people, like Notorious Secret's cool, Tef's cool. Like just people I've like talked to on
oh, cool.
Nice. In hot takes and stuff. Not like one-on-one, but like just it's interesting seeing all these artists and like they're all kind of cool and they'll get along and stuff. And it's like nice. I like that they're nice people. Then it moves into, let's see, we're getting into the late teens here.
Yeah, like 18 is kind of wild for me. It's kind of like almost synth wavy, like gore, something in Japanese.
Yeah. And like it's it also starts off with like a great little like beat, like some side sticking and really nice kick sample, like really deep, and just kind of lets this beat come in for like 30, 40 seconds, and then slowly other instruments come up and over it. Let me actually play a little sample from that. I'm playing a bit of this because this is, I'm largely picking samples that stood out to me as being like very different from what I would expect on a Vaporwave compilation. For me personally, is like, I'm going to call myself a casual listener, even though we do this podcast, like the whole point of this is to engage with it as a filthy casual. And I thought this was really interesting. Like this darker, slower composition, like just stood out to me as much as I love all that lounge vaporwave I just said, and certainly signal wave. We're both huge proponents of signal wave. I could have used a bit more of it, maybe even on this. But there's recently SignalCon, which was very, very good. So if you want signal wave, check out SignalCon on
I actually listened to the good chunk of the first day of SignalCon. It's very nice. Like I will definitely listen to more of it. But I agree that like track 18 is like nothing I would have expected from this album, and I quite like.
That's great.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's how these things evolve, and it does kind of mark a shift into the next block. At least for a few tracks, it's a little more ambient.
Definitely, it's taking the energy down a little bit.
Yeah.
I definitely like track 20 really stood out to me. Your Heart by Truman, because that like a lot of guitar, like some singing or like some vocals. And it just reminded me like this is like this is like a B side from like Silent Hill soundtrack. Like this is not like
or some like survival horror game that never existed or something like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is like, we're not at the monster yet. It's just kind of weird and like your characters in an emotional state and something reflecting that emotional intensity. But it's super cool. And again, nothing I would have expected.
Yeah.
And we do get into more of these ambient sounds, like some more pitch shifted stuff, very lush, more experimental at times. Yeah. I quite like it.
Yeah. Moving through, I think one track, some of these stand out to me just because I know the artist name. Like, unfortunately, there's probably a little bias of like, oh, I've heard that before. Even though I don't think there were any bad tracks on this album. There's nothing where I was like, ooh, no, turn this off.
That actually was the most surprising thing for me, because most compilations, there's at least a couple tracks you're like, ugh, just skip that. Like, yeah. And there was nothing on this album. Like, it actually had a really good like flow to it too. In this, I know that's a terrible word to use, but like it picks up high energy and then kind of like gradually gets more and more ambient. But like, yeah, it's kind of a nice little like roller coaster. We ramp up and then we kind of cool down. So I thought that was a good way to structure the track list.
Yeah, especially now that we're in this back quarter where it does kind of slow down again. I think one track we both really liked, looking at your notes and my notes, is track 23, which is "Let's Go on an Adventure" by Brick Mason.
Yeah.
Who had a great signal concept too. So they're like signal wave adjacent. Yeah, just a really nice little ambient track that I really liked in this ambient block of like a block of strung ambient. I really liked it. Yeah,
it has this nice like tinkling kind of like chimes or bells or something like that, but like in a very pleasant way. It's just, Let's Go on an Adventure. It's so warm and nice and like, it's very good. Very good. Yeah, I'm we have similar tastes, it turns out.
Yeah, weird. Yeah. It's one of those tracks that, I think I talked about this on the Luxury Elite, where I get a little wary of like over comparing to other media. But it is one of those tracks that was like evocative to me because it feels like it's good enough to be, I guess this is most of them, but like good enough to be like a score for like a movie. Because to me, like that like warm, not quite whimsical, that's not quite the right word, but there's like an odd nostalgia to it. And I feel like it would be the opening credits of like panning over like slightly out of focus, like mantle of family memorabilia.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why that's such a specific image, or like some tortured character's room or something.
Yeah.
But like a teenager, like an art. I don't know. This is a compliment, Brick. I promise you this is a compliment. But like, it was like, it's just, some of these tracks just stand out as like, these like evocative, like, oh, I could so clearly see like visuals for this.
Oh, sure. I actually had something similar with that. Actually, I did have a visual for this, and I was like a kid playing a game on like a Commodore 64 or some of those old, like a 1980s flashback of a kid playing like a very old type adventure video game. You know, like he's literally adventure or something like that, you know, or Zork or something, and like typing away at his little keyboard and going on an adventure, looking all precocious and everything. And then we flash forward to the as an adult, it's like, oh God, things are complicated. But you know, I had that one happy memory. Because like it's warm, but it's not like, it's not whimsical. It's not like pandering or condescending. Like a lot of those things get too saccharine, right? Like this sort of hit the right mark of being like, there are better things, but it's not like infantilizing you, right? Like it's it's not like a Disney thing, right? Like Disney would just be like, it was perfect back then, and just think about that. Don't think about the complications of the here and now. And then there's a bit of a shift with the next track though, because
the last few do have like another little block. It's like these little like 3 to 4 track blocks.
It's very like the next track 34, New Realities by 433, is very grungy, very like lo-fi ambient. Lots of very strong crackle to it, like almost Caretaker-esque in that regard.
A lot of distortion, yeah.
And so like, things are, your memories are failing you. You know, things are things are falling apart. And and then it's a little like, I wouldn't say dark, but like definitely the end is near. We're just gonna fade out musically. We're just gonna have this chill wave stuff, this ambient stuff, this, and then kind of end on a high note though with Spiral, which is more spacey and cosmic-y, and kind of switches into EDM at the very end, which is a nice little uprooting thing.
The last track, Spiral, like you're saying, by Remain Spirit, is an interesting one because it's like, it's another one of those sort of tracks. It's like, this is not a track I would think is on like a Vaporwave album. Again, you know, not to tie anything too strongly to what has to be vaporwave. That's not what I mean when I say that. It's just I like cool synth opening into like EDM, like really staccato and like stuttered, like syncopated, frenetic beats and stuff. It's just interesting. It's just one of those tracks that's like, oh, I wouldn't have expected this, but I don't hate it.
Yeah,
don't mind it.
Yeah.
But that's why they don't let me put together the compilation. So they get real people who know about music to do it.
Yeah. I wonder how this loops back to track one. Like, I wonder, I kind of want to now play like the very end of cassette side B and see it loop back to cassette side A and see if it forms this kind of this perfect loop of music.
No, I don't think quite perfect, because that opening of synesthesia is like a nice little like keyboard chord that kind of fades in. It's a little smoother than the end of Spiral, but you can do it because, you know, if you just let the track finish playing on Bandcamp, it'll start up the cassette side A as the next track, right?
Yeah.
Which is essentially the same thing as looping back. And yeah, I mean, it's not like a perfect loop or anything, but like, I don't know, maybe I'm taking perfect loop more strictly than you are.
Yeah,
that could also be. Sorry. But yeah, I think it's probably a thing you can listen to on loop if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I suppose I wouldn't, not because I don't like it, but because I just...
Well, part of it is for me is like, I listen to a lot of YouTube mixes, as I mentioned before, and a lot of them do this trick where they actually like, they have a mix of, you know, however many songs, but then they put it on twice. And it's like a 30-minute mix, but it's an hour-long video. And like a lot of times, now I'm like, I always look at the track list to see if it does that. But at the beginning, it's like, this sounds familiar. And then I'm like, oh, I've been listening 10 minutes into the same mix again. They tricked me. They got me. But like it, if I had not, like, on the other hand, I was listening to it and I liked it so much. I didn't even notice it until like, you know, 10 or 15 minutes in. So it did its job in seducing me and in keeping me listening to the same stuff. So yeah, I just wonder if this would meet that same standard. You could just put it on and not even realize you've been listening to the same thing for, you know, however many hours or whatever. So
maybe.
Yeah.
Hour and a half is probably long enough that you could.
Yeah, like I said, this is a really nice album. It's a real, if you wanted a compilation, sort of like a sampler of like all the different, like currently popular, you know, subgenres of vaporwave, I think this is a really good place to start.
Yeah, I agree. So now that we're at the end, go back to the question you posed is like, who would you seek out more from on this? Are there any like real standout artists?
Yeah, three that I've already mentioned briefly. One would be the first one would be Celadon Dream Suite, because again, that breakcore stuff, you know, that I like. I really want to see where that goes. I want to see if that's representative of their body of work or not. And because I really do like the idea of vaporwave, like EDM, breakcore, drum and bass kind of like. I really want to see what that is. Or listen to it. Another one would be Truman, because I want, again, that track is so evocative, and I really want to see if they could do, like, I really do like the Silent Hill soundtrack, and I really like that sound, and a lot of people are obviously influenced by it, and, you know, you see Silent Hill inspired mix of music, and it's too close, right? Like, I want things in that vein, but not just ripping off Silent Hill 2. And I think that track succeeded. I want to see if there's more like it. And then Brick Mason, let's get, you know, I want to see, you already mentioned he's a Signal Wave artist. They're a Signal Wave artist. So I really want to see.
Yeah. They're on the Signal Wave Discord and adjacent there too.
Yeah. So I want to check that out and listen, because I like that one. So I'm sure I would like that. So those are the three that stand out the most to me. There's some others, like I would like maybe Gore, but like those are the three I'm going to look up first. I don't know if I'm going to keep focused on this album long enough to look up more artists, but those three for sure. What about you?
So some of them that you named I'm already familiar with. So I'm curious to see what you think of their other stuff, because it's more vaporwavy, slushy in some cases. Like I learned about Celadon Dream Suite because they were on one of the maybe the most recent one, Slush Wave Christmas compilations. I think that was where I first remember hearing the name, but I really like their stuff. So I do encourage you to check it out. For me, I'm going to pick one of the lounge artists I hadn't heard of, which is the Sober Gaze Romantic Dinner that we talked about. Just see, because I do like that classic lounge driven, like late night lo-fi. It's been getting into it. Just, I don't know, just been in the mood for it recently. And then I'm probably going to check out 433 because I do like that really dirty lo-fi ambient. Just that like fuck me up with static.
Yeah.
I do like that stuff. And let's see, to pick three, like you picked, because I do kind of want to check out like most of this, at least see what else is out there for the ones I hadn't heard of. But I am going to go with, actually, I'm going to go with the other track that was different, which I'm going to go with the gore.
Oh, yeah.
Branch out a little bit into something a little different. Just try to expand my horizons instead of just like, oh, this sounds like stuff I already liked.
Yeah,
I'm gonna listen to more of that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do them as something a little different. But I really highly recommend checking out the whole compilation. And I can see over the next 6 months, at least at some point, listening to something. Check out an album by pretty much everyone on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that idea of like what's the deal with gore? Like what are they up to?
Yeah, because I really liked it. Yeah, it was so different. I really liked it.
I liked it too. I just it was surprising. I think you're on to something with that. I kind of do want to see if Copywrong does. Oh no, Copywrong was fun, but yeah, that was very 80s, right? Yeah, that was a good sample. The Lost Traveler, I do want to see if they have more of that business synth, dungeon synth / business synth sound. I do like me a nice dungeon synthy kind of vibe. And if it's about PowerPoint slides, that's fine. That's just as her dealing with all that office bullshit is just as heroic as fighting monsters in a dungeon, I think.
Agreed.
But yeah, this entire album is just like $1 on Bandcamp. So it's worth getting. Oh, yeah. And it's a lot of really good Vaporwave.
Thank you so much for listening. Just to reiterate our recommendation for this album, it was really great to hear all this music from up and comers, a lot of names I knew, but also a lot I didn't. So really enjoyable to go through that. Hope we inspired you to do the same. But next episode, we're continuing the trend of digging into new stuff. Ross found a dark ambient record label that's not Cryo Chamber. So we're going to pick... we're going to get back into dark ambient. I feel like it's been a while. It's been a lot of vaporwave, signal wave. But that could be just, brain rot. And if I looked at the episode list, we did one like 2 months ago. But who knows? Doesn't matter because we're doing it next time. So 8th Tower Records, we're going to grab a couple albums off their discography and talk about it and get back into dark ambient. Yay. So if you like this episode and you want to hear more of what we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/nightclerkradio. We have almost 30 bonus episodes at this point, talking about all kinds of stuff that we don't get into on the main feed. There's some essays. There's a Discord full of cool people who recommend us excellent music and have really great discussions with. You can also find us Night Clerk Radio pretty much anywhere. The big one being Twitter, where we are at Night Clerk Radio. Ross is at Ross Payton, and I am at Burke McBurkinson. There's also nightclerkradio.com, Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram. Didn't do Threads.
Yep.
That's about it. Doesn't matter. I don't look at any of them. No offense. It's just not good at social media. But wherever you do choose to check us out, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, etc. If possible, take a moment to rate, review, subscribe, whatever. It all really helps us get noticed. And we also advocate. I like this. We've been doing this building community. So I think, talk to people about what you like, and hopefully what you like is some cool vaporwave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.